And then I got into Memphis, and some began to say the threats or talk about the threats that were out. What would happen to me from some of our sick white brothers? Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop, and I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land. And I'm so happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Those were the final words from Martin Luther King Jr. back on April 3rd, 1968. The next day, he was assassinated, Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. And that was a chapter, oddly enough, that was closed. That was the day that peaceful protest pretty much ended. Sure, we have some rallies here and there now with things that are happening with police killings and different things like that, but it's not the same. You know, they had the Million Man March in Washington, D.C. some years ago, but it wasn't the same. The causes were different. You know, the thing about Dr. King is that he metamorphosized some. He started out as just a civil rights leader for black people, and then he morphed into more of a civil rights leader for everybody. I mean, he was in Memphis fighting for sanitation workers. He had come out against Vietnam. He, this is a peaceful guy. He was a young man when he got started, and he was still a relatively young man when he was assassinated. And we still don't really know who did it. It may have been James Earl Ray, but I'm not so sure that it was. And, I thought it was something that needed to be talked about today on the 50th anniversary of the assassination. Because the best thing that I have seen that reflects how I have felt about the last 50 years was actually done by Boondocks, which was a cartoon. It was actually a comic strip, and then it became a cartoon. I don't even remember what network it was on. And they did a thing where, what if Martin Luther King Jr. came back? And it's horrifying because he calls out black people for some of the behavior that has taken place in all this time period. And that is something that is a shame that I have to kind of bring that up, but I must bring that up because we can sit here and blame society for a lot of ills. And let's face the fact, you know what? There are a lot of societal ills. There is a lot of bad behavior that has happened toward minorities, not just black people, but minorities in general. People don't believe in white privilege. Yeah, you know what? There's white privilege. I hate to be the one to tell you, but there is. Own up to it. You don't think so? Be poor and white, be poor and black. Let someone come to your house and they're going to treat you differently if you're white than they're going to do if you're black. They're just going to. It's happened. I'm not necessarily of that background, but I did live for a year in a ghetto in Kansas City, and I saw things that pretty much colored my beliefs and the true equality of everybody for the rest of my life. I think that everyone deserves a chance. There should be fairness. Maybe not necessarily equality because the world's not equal. We're just not. The educational system's not equal. So if you say, well, we treat everyone the same, then you're probably coming from white privilege. I hate to say that once again, but I'll say that. But it's a two-way street. Yeah, it is strong. Black on black crime is strong. You can justify it by saying, well, people, when they don't have enough money, they need to take care of their families. They're trying to get off drugs. They're trying to do something better. They're trying to find a new start. And people will do whatever it is that they need to do. You can say that. Heck, we can say that everywhere. Rich people do the same thing. But we don't go around killing each other. You know, we need to kind of decide what kind of society do we want. And it's not just black people, it's the entire society. Because sometime in the 2030s, white is not going to be the majority in this country. That's what all the numbers are saying. So you better decide now. Are we going to try to set things up so that everyone has a fair chance? Or are you going to turn this into an apartheid situation like they had in South Africa? Or are we going to try to say, you know what, we need to build everybody up. We need to have all the schools being as good as possible. We need to make sure that everyone gets paid a fair wage. We need to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to go to college if they can. We just need to do this. We need to equalize law enforcement so we'll stop killing black people, so that people like me don't get stopped just because you're black. And it happened to me when I was younger. Not when I'm older now, but when I was younger, I got stopped at times and they would say, what are you doing here? It's like, you mean, what am I doing here? What kind of question is that? But luckily, I was smart enough to be really nice. And of course, back then, luckily, living where I lived, you didn't hear about cops pulling people out of cars and beating them. You know? I mean, let's think about Rodney King. Poor Rodney King. He wasn't the first. He was just the most well-known. And those guys got off. And people keep getting off. Cops keep getting off. One recently even sued and got back pay. Goodness. You know, we need to be better. Dr. King would have hoped for better. And, you know, if we're going to honor the legacy of this man, everything that he tried to do, we need to be better. We need to embrace diversity. I hate to say we need to embrace tolerance, but we really do, because no one really wants to be tolerated. Everyone wants to be treated fairly. But you have to open up those words. We need to be more inclusive. We need to open up for everybody. And I mean everybody. So we need to stop saying, well, we need more women, we need more blacks, we need more Hispanics, we need more Asians, we need more whites, we need more whatever. Everybody needs to have the fair opportunities for everything. That's what I have to say. How are you going to honor the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King? What do you think of what I've said here? It's going to be controversial on both sides, but you know what? These are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. I hope y'all are having a wonderful day, and let's see what happens.